For thousands of years, the stars watched Earth grow. Civilizations rose, fought wars, built cities, and collapsed again. From the outside, it must have looked like chaos. A small blue planet where people could never agree, always busy arguing over land, power, and belief. To the distant watchers from across the galaxy, humanity seemed weak, divided, and foolish. In the halls of the Galactic Council, a vast union of alien civilizations, Earth was a topic of mild amusement. The Council had eyes everywhere, using probes that could hide behind moons and satellites that could record every nuclear test and radio wave. They studied human broadcasts, their movies, their music, and their endless news reports about conflict. To them, it looked like Earth was a world that could destroy itself long before it ever reached the stars. The Council had a classification system for every planet. Some were civilized worlds, advanced, peaceful, and united under one voice. Others were developing worlds, places still learning the basics of technology. But Earth didn't fit either category. It was something in between, too smart to be primitive, but too chaotic to be trusted. So the Council created a new label, one used rarely in their long history: defenseless yet unpredictable. That label stuck for hundreds of years. When alien observers secretly approached the solar system, they kept their distance. They sent drones disguised as chunks of space rock. These drones scanned radio signals, television broadcasts, and internet data streams. They saw wars breaking out on Earth, leaders shouting at each other, and nations threatening one another. They saw people struggling for food and water while others built luxury towers. Every piece of evidence confirmed their conclusion: this species would never unite long enough to build anything truly powerful. In the council chambers, enormous rooms carved out of crystal and filled with strange glowing creatures, Earth was often used as an example in lectures for young diplomats. A world with potential but no discipline, the instructors would say. A warning of what happens when emotion controls progress. What they didn't realize was that emotion was exactly what made humanity dangerous. While the galaxy believed humans were weak, something else was happening quietly back on Earth. Beneath the political noise and social chaos, humanity was learning. Each war, each mistake, each disaster pushed them to build stronger systems, smarter machines, and faster communication. Every time one nation invented a new weapon, another nation found a way to defend against it. Each invention pushed the next. Humanity was moving at a pace no alien civilization had ever seen before. But to the Council, none of that mattered. They only saw the surface, a divided world, still obsessed with old rivalries. They called it the planet of endless noise. Meanwhile, ordinary people on Earth had begun noticing something strange. Astronomers in small observatories found traces of unknown objects near the asteroid belt. They moved too slowly to be asteroids, too quietly to be comets. But every time they tried to alert the media, the stories disappeared. Governments dismissed them as data errors or instrument glitches. Still, a few people knew better. It started with scientists who worked for international space programs. They saw readings they couldn't explain, faint radio pulses from beyond Jupiter, echoes that matched no known frequency. At first, they thought it was a new type of natural radiation, but the signals had patterns, organized, rhythmic patterns. Someone, or something, was watching. Behind the public's back, world leaders met in secret. Not just a few, but all of them. Even the nations that had been enemies for decades. It was the first time in history that they agreed on something. Earth might not be alone, and if that was true, humanity couldn't afford to be seen as weak. At first, they built small defenses, better satellites, stronger radar networks, and new ways to hide their technology from foreign observation. But then something bigger began. The project had no official name at first. It was just called the Program. A group of engineers, scientists, and military minds from every continent came together under one rule. Whatever we build, the world must never know until the time is right. It took years before the first prototype was finished. It wasn't a weapon, not exactly. It was a ship, enormous, built in pieces, hidden inside old cargo platforms that orbited Earth. Only a few thousand people even knew it existed. They, worked in shifts that lasted months, far away from family and civilization. To them, the stars no longer looked peaceful. They looked like a threat waiting to arrive. But even among those who worked on the project, few knew the truth. They believed they were building a deep space exploration craft, a symbol of unity. In reality, the ship was designed for something far greater: defense, deterrence, and survival. It would one day be called a Dreadnought. While all this happened, the Council continued to laugh. They intercepted fragments of Earth's data traffic, the same old fights, the same confusion. They saw humans celebrating the discovery of water on Mars, while failing to notice the alien probes hidden behind the planet's orbit. The Council's analysts marked Earth's progress as slow and disorganized. What they didn't realize was that Earth's silence was intentional. After centuries of broadcasting television, radio, and signals across the stars, humanity suddenly grew quiet. The chatter stopped. Scientists stopped sending messages to outer space. The SETI programs were quietly shut down. The telescopes that once searched for life now focused only on defense. To outsiders, it looked like humans had lost interest in the universe. To those on the inside, it was a strategy, a way to vanish from the galaxy's attention while they prepared. Even within the Council, some began to grow curious. Why had Earth gone dark? One ambassador, an old creature with silver tendrils, warned his peers. The quiet ones are never harmless. But the others laughed. It's just a dying world, they said. Let it be. Down on Earth, the quiet wasn't fear. It was focus. Scientists in hidden labs pushed technology to new limits: quantum drives, energy shields, and materials that could survive re-entry without damage. Every discovery was locked behind classified walls, kept secret from the public and from the stars. And slowly, humanity changed. Nations that once fought started to share resources, at least among the top scientific circles. Rival generals exchanged data in encrypted channels. Old grudges faded in the face of a new question. What if the galaxy was watching and waiting for us to fail? People still lived their daily lives unaware of it all. Children went to school, workers commuted, and cities glowed through the night. No one knew that far above, in the blackness beyond the moon, giant structures were forming, the skeletons of ships larger than anything ever built. They floated in silence, hidden behind shadows and false signals that confused alien scanners. The Council's drones came closer, trying to confirm their readings. They saw nothing, only harmless satellites and debris. The humans had learned how to hide. As years passed, the galaxy's interest in Earth faded again. Reports slowed down. The Council moved on to other worlds, but not everyone forgot. Some of their scouts remained near the solar system, still watching the primitive species with faint curiosity. They saw humans build bigger rockets, faster computers, and stranger machines. They thought it was just human obsession with progress. They never guessed it was preparation. And so Earth continued its act, a planet pretending to be noisy, divided, and distracted. But deep beneath that mask, it was planning something extraordinary. Something that would one day make the galaxy remember the name Earth not as a weak world, but as the one that changed everything. The day would come when the watchers from above would finally move closer, thinking they had nothing to fear. And on that day, when they reached for the silent blue world they thought was defenseless, they would hear the thunder of engines that were never supposed to exist. For now, though, Earth stayed quiet. The stars still shimmered peacefully, unaware of the storm humanity was building just beneath them. The galaxy thought it understood Earth. It had no idea what was coming next. The world above was calm, but the world below was restless. After years of silence and hidden work, humanity had started to change in ways most people could not see. The cities still buzzed with traffic, the news still argued about politics, and the internet was full of endless debates. But behind the walls of secret facilities and in deep underground bunkers, something very different was happening. Humanity was learning how to protect itself from a threat it could not yet name. It had all started with those mysterious signals from deep space, patterns that seemed too perfect to be natural. The scientists who studied them had been told to stay quiet, to keep their findings off public channels. Governments said it was national security, but the truth was much bigger than nations. The truth was that Earth had been seen, and once you're seen, you can never hide again. Leaders from every corner of the planet gathered in secret. They met in rooms where windows were sealed and devices were banned. Translators whispered across the table as the world's most powerful people agreed on one thing for the first time in history. Earth had to prepare for something larger than any single country could face. It wasn't about power anymore. It was about survival. The project that followed had no official name. It was only referred to as the program. Each country played a part, no matter how small. Some shared their best scientists. Others shared funding or rare materials. Even enemies worked together without letting their citizens know. They couldn't afford to argue this time. The first steps were simple. They improved satellite defenses, built early warning systems, and upgraded tracking radars to see beyond the solar system. But soon the work became something else, something far more ambitious. Humans began designing ships that could not only travel through space but also fight in it. At first, even the engineers didn't understand the full purpose of what they were building. They were told it was for research or planetary defense experiments. But as they assembled giant metallic structures inside hidden shipyards, they realized these weren't exploration vessels. They were too heavily armored, too vast, and too powerful. These ships were made to survive attacks from beyond the stars. The early prototypes were clumsy and unstable. Engines overheated, energy cores failed, and materials melted under pressure. Some test ships exploded before they even left the ground. Yet no one gave up. Each failure taught them something new. Each disaster built the foundation for success. Behind closed doors, scientists worked with technology that would have sounded impossible just decades earlier. They developed energy fields that could bend gravity and metals that could heal small cracks on their own. They experimented with propulsion drives that didn't rely on fuel but on something deeper: quantum compression. A power source still not fully understood even by those who built it. Meanwhile, on the surface, people lived their ordinary lives. Children played under the same blue sky. Workers went to factories, farmers to their fields. No one suspected that hundreds of kilometers above them, humanity was secretly building ships the size of cities. The world's space agencies began sharing facilities. Old space stations were repurposed, their logos covered with plain gray paint. Cargo vessels carrying strange equipment left Earth every week, their destinations unlisted. To the public, it was routine maintenance. In reality, those vessels carried parts of something far greater, pieces of the first human dreadnought. The dreadnought was not just a ship. It was the symbol of Earth's new identity. It was enormous, built with layers of armor thicker than any tank and powered by engines capable of traveling between planets in weeks. Every bolt, every panel, every circuit was designed by minds from across the planet. It was not owned by any one nation. It belonged to humanity itself. But the secrecy came with a cost. Many who worked on the project never saw their families again. They lived in isolated zones cut off from the world, signing agreements that bound them to silence. Some called it a sacrifice. Others called it duty. They knew that what they were building could be the difference between extinction and survival. Meanwhile, the Galaxy Council kept watching. Their probes continued to monitor Earth, but what they saw made no sense. Humanity's communication signals had decreased dramatically. There were fewer transmissions, fewer experiments in open space. The planet that once shouted its presence across the galaxy had gone almost completely quiet. The Council's scientists found this strange. Some believed humans were collapsing technologically. Others thought they were too busy fighting among themselves. None of them realized that Earth had found ways to hide its progress from their sensors. One of the first breakthroughs was the invention of cloaked energy signatures. The engineers learned how to disguise power readings so that to outsiders, their massive constructions looked like harmless space junk. Shipyards were built in the shadows of the moon and inside the dark sides of asteroids, hidden behind electromagnetic veils. It was humanity's first true step into the game of deception on a galactic level. Years passed, and the dreadnought fleet slowly began to take shape. There were only a few at first, unfinished giants floating in darkness, still under construction. But each one represented a milestone. With every completed section, humanity's confidence grew. Still, tension filled the air. The people in charge of the program knew that secrecy could not last forever. One wrong move, one leak, one captured signal, and the entire galaxy would know Earth's plan. To maintain silence, communication within the program was handled through isolated relay channels. Messages were transmitted only through physical drives, no networks, no open frequencies. It was an old-fashioned system, but it worked. Humanity was learning how to survive by not being seen. At times, there were close calls. Alien probes occasionally came too close to the moon. Whenever that happened, Earth's defense satellites activated and sent false data, heat readings, chemical traces, and false transmissions to make the planet look harmless. They were convincing illusions, and the Council bought them every time. Inside the control rooms of the program, the atmosphere was a strange mix of exhaustion and pride. Some days, people worked 20 hours without rest. They knew they might never be recognized for what they were doing. There would be no awards, no public ceremonies, no books written about them. Yet they kept going. Deep inside, they felt it. The quiet, shared belief that humanity was finally becoming something more than just another divided species. Far above the planet, construction drones floated in silence, welding massive metal plates together. The first completed Dreadnought glowed faintly under the sun's reflection. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, smooth and strong, its armor reflecting both the darkness of space and the light of hope. On Earth, the people remained unaware. Life went on. Television channels talked about politics, sports, and entertainment. No one mentioned the massive shadows forming beyond the clouds. Humanity's secret was still safe. But not everyone in the program agreed with staying hidden. Some believed that if the galaxy knew about the Dreadnoughts, it might deter an attack before it began. Others argued that revealing their strength too early could make them a target. The debate was endless and the decision was heavy. Eventually, the choice was made. Earth would remain silent until the moment came when silence was no longer an option. The Council, far away among the stars, still viewed Earth as weak. Their reports described it as technologically uneven, socially unstable, politically fragmented. They thought humanity had given up on reaching the stars. They didn't know that the stars were already within reach, and that Earth's ships were almost ready to rise. The Dreadnoughts were humanity's answer to fear. They were not weapons of conquest, but symbols of resilience. They carried not only missiles and shields, but also the dreams of billions who had never known peace. And though the galaxy laughed at Earth, calling it a noisy little world, humanity was smiling quietly back. Because while the Council saw only confusion, Earth was doing what it did best, learning from its mistakes, adapting to its challenges, and turning weakness into strength. In the cold silence of space, deep behind the moon's shadow, the final tests began. Engines roared without sound in the vacuum, and blue light rippled across the hull of the first completed Dreadnought. It floated there motionless for a moment, like a sleeping giant waiting for a reason to wake. On its side, barely visible under layers of armor, a phrase was engraved by one of the builders, "For the day they come." That day was coming faster than anyone expected. Humanity had spent so long being watched, underestimated, and judged. But soon the watchers would see the truth. Earth was no longer the weak, noisy planet they once thought it was. Beneath the calm blue oceans and crowded cities, something powerful had been born. A unity forged from fear, hope, and survival. The galaxy had no idea that the silence from Earth was not surrender. It was a warning. For years, the galaxy had almost forgotten about Earth. To the Council, it was just another quiet planet spinning around a small star at the edge of a minor galaxy. Reports came in only once every few decades, short, boring updates saying there was no sign of progress. The aliens thought humans were still stuck fighting among themselves. But in one part of the Council, curiosity was starting to rise again. Strange readings had begun showing up on their deep space sensors. They weren't clear or strong enough to be called a signal, but they repeated in patterns. And the source always came from the same region, Earth's solar system. At first, the Council dismissed it as random noise, a natural flare from the sun or a human experiment gone wrong. But the readings didn't stop. In fact, they started to grow stronger. That's when the Council decided to send a small observation fleet to check. The fleet wasn't large, just a handful of scout ships designed for long-range travel and data collection. They were confident there was no danger. After all, this was Earth, the defenseless world. The lead vessel, a sleek silver craft shaped like a spear, entered the edge of the solar system quietly. Its scanners began collecting data immediately. Everything looked normal at first. The planets followed their usual orbits. The human satellites were still old and weak. There were no strong energy signatures, no signs of advanced spaceflight. It looked exactly how the Council expected it to look: primitive. But then the scouts noticed something strange. As they moved closer to the inner planets, their sensors began to malfunction. Navigation signals flickered. Radar pings came back scrambled. It was as if some kind of invisible field was distorting their systems. The fleet commander ordered a reset, thinking it was a software issue. The systems came back online, but the distortion remained. They tried to send a message back to the Council headquarters, but the signal kept breaking apart before leaving the system. Something or someone was blocking them. Still, they didn't panic. They were sure humans didn't have that kind of power. Maybe it was a natural interference caused by the sun or the planet's magnetism. They decided to move closer to Earth, hoping to study the source more clearly. But the closer they got, the stranger things became. When they passed Mars, their long-range scanners detected large metallic objects drifting near the planet. They were too big to be debris, too organized to be random rocks. The fleet zoomed in. For a moment, the images were blurry. Then the view cleared, and what they saw made them freeze. Floating above Mars were enormous human-made structures, silent, dark, and motionless. They were half hidden in the planet's shadow, but the shape was unmistakable. The aliens had seen this kind of design before: warships. At first, they thought it was impossible. Earth couldn't have built such things. The last time they checked, humans had barely left their planet. Yet here were ships the size of small cities, perfectly still, as if waiting. The fleet commander didn't believe it. "They're probably space stations," he said to calm his crew. "Old orbital platforms. Harmless." But deep down, he wasn't sure. He ordered a closer look. As the alien fleet approached Mars, the silence felt heavier. Their sensors tried to scan the structures again, but now everything went blank. The data came back as zeros. No energy readings. No movement. Nothing. The commander frowned. It was as if the massive ships weren't even there. And then, for the first time in the mission, they heard a sound. A faint pulse echoing across their comm systems. It wasn't a distress call or a warning. It was rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The crew went silent, listening. The sound grew louder, clearer, until it formed into something that chilled them. It was a voice. "Earth acknowledges your presence," the voice said calmly. "We suggest you stand down." No translation system was needed. The message came in perfect galactic common, the universal language of the stars. The aliens stared at each other in disbelief. How could humans know that language? How could they transmit across interstellar frequencies? The commander tried to respond, demanding to know who was speaking. But before he could finish, the comms cut off completely. All channels went dead. The screens flickered, lights dimmed. The entire fleet went silent. Out of the dark, a shadow moved. From behind Mars, something massive emerged, slow, graceful, and terrifyingly silent. The first human dreadnought had awakened. Its metallic surface shimmered faintly under the sunlight, revealing lines of armor that stretched for kilometers. Its size dwarfed the alien ships easily. The aliens stared in shock. This wasn't a station. It wasn't an experiment. It was a fully functional warship. Their sensors tried to read its power levels, and failed. The dreadnought was running on a system they couldn't understand. No known element matched the energy readings. No engine type fit its pattern. It was something completely new. For a long moment, the alien fleet didn't move. Neither did the dreadnought. The silence between them felt endless. Finally, the alien commander, desperate to regain control, ordered a harmless test. a low-powered scan pulse aimed at the human ship. The pulse hit the Dreadnought's outer field and vanished instantly, absorbed like water into sand. The Dreadnought didn't respond at first. Then, slowly, panels along its sides began to open. From them came a faint blue glow that spread across its hull like flowing light. The glow reached the ship's front and suddenly beams of pure energy shot outward, not to attack but to disable. In less than a second, every alien ship in the fleet went dark. Their engines powered down. Their systems froze. Even their lights went out. Yet, strangely, none of them were destroyed. They were simply stopped. The human ship had disabled them completely without firing a single weapon. The alien crews panicked. They tried to restart their ships manually, but nothing worked. The Dreadnought just hovered there, silent and unmoving. Then, a second message came through the comms, the same calm voice as before. Your intentions are noted. Leave our system. Do not return uninvited. The commander wanted to argue, but he couldn't. His fleet was powerless, and deep inside, he felt fear, not just for his life, but for what this meant. If Earth had one ship like that, how many more could there be? A few minutes later, the lights on the alien ships flickered back to life. Engines restarted. The systems came online again. The humans had released them. The commander didn't waste time. He gave the order to retreat. The fleet turned around and sped away from Earth's orbit, not daring to look back. As they crossed the edge of the solar system, the communications link to the Council finally reconnected. The commander transmitted everything: the recordings, the data, the messages. Then he said quietly, "They're not defenseless anymore." Back on Earth, in a control room deep underground, a group of tired people watched the same encounter unfold on their monitors. When the alien fleet retreated, a sigh of relief filled the room. The mission had gone exactly as planned. The Dreadnought had done what it was built to do. Not destroy, but warn. Humanity had stayed hidden long enough. It had waited for the right moment to show its strength, and now that moment had come. The world below remained peaceful and unaware, but high above, in the blackness of space, the silence had been broken. For the first time in history, the galaxy had seen Earth's true face. The Dreadnought, its task complete, returned to its hidden orbit. Its engines dimmed and it disappeared once again into darkness. But those who had witnessed it, both human and alien, would never forget what they had seen. The Council would soon call for meetings, arguments, and endless debates. Some would demand to confront Earth. Others would say to leave it alone. But whatever they decided, one truth had already spread through the stars like fire. The defenseless planet wasn't weak anymore. The galaxy had come expecting silence. Instead, it met the echo of power. And though the stars went quiet again, the silence this time was different. It wasn't ignorance, it was fear. The alien fleet's retreat didn't go unnoticed. For a long time after they left, the silence of space hung heavy around Earth's orbit. The massive Dreadnought floated quietly, its metallic hull reflecting the faint light of the sun. Deep inside, in command rooms filled with screens and whispers, humanity watched, waiting to see what would happen next. They had shown the galaxy a glimpse of their strength, but the real test was still ahead. The question on everyone's mind was the same. Would the Council come back? Inside the secret command base on Earth, tension filled the air. Every scientist, every technician, every operator felt the weight of what had just happened. For years they had worked in silence, building something no one believed possible. Now they had finally revealed a small part of it, and the galaxy had seen. The higher officials knew the aliens wouldn't ignore it. The Council was proud, old, and used to being in control. They wouldn't take kindly to being challenged by a planet they once mocked as primitive. Humanity had sent a message, and messages like that always demanded a reply. For days, the skies above Earth remained quiet. Satellites picked up no new movement, no energy signatures, no incoming transmissions. Still, everyone stayed alert. The Dreadnought crews didn't rest. The ships floated silently behind the moon, fully armed but powered down to stay hidden. On the 10th day, the silence broke. A transmission came through, faint, but unmistakable. It wasn't human. It was a galactic signal, encrypted in a format no Earth system had ever used before. It came from deep space, far beyond Pluto's orbit. The moment analysts decoded it, every screen in the control room went dark except one. A line of glowing symbols appeared, followed by a voice. Deep, calm, and commanding. This is the Galactic Council. You are trespassing beyond your status. Identify yourselves. The humans looked at one another. Some were frightened. Others were angry. But the response they had prepared for this exact moment was ready. A calm human voice replied through the main channel. We are Earth. We have heard your judgment for centuries. We will not bow to it any longer. The transmission cut off. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the sensors began to scream. Dozens of unknown ships had entered the solar system. They were faster, larger, and far more advanced than the scout fleet that came before. The Council wasn't here to talk this time. They were here to test Earth's claim. In orbit, the Dreadnoughts powered up. Their hulls glowed faintly as energy surged through them, lighting up patterns like veins beneath their surface. The humans aboard them felt their hearts race. Some whispered quiet prayers. Others stared at the radar screens, watching as the alien fleet approached. When the Council's fleet reached the edge of Mars, they slowed down. From the lead ship, a message broadcasted across every frequency. This is your final warning. Earth, you will surrender your weapons and technology for inspection. On Earth, command officials exchanged worried glances. They knew what inspection meant. It meant control. It meant giving up everything humanity had built. Then a single voice came through the human channel, steady, confident, and calm. Earth does not surrender. The words traveled through the vast emptiness of space and reached the alien fleet. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the Council's ships began to move again, forming attack formations. They fired a test shot, a controlled plasma beam aimed not at Earth but near the moon, as a show of force. The beam hit empty space, lighting it up in bright blue fire. The message was clear: obey or be destroyed. But Earth didn't respond with fear. The lead Dreadnought, the same ship that had disabled the scout fleet earlier, moved out from behind the moon. It glided forward slowly, like a shadow rising into the light. The humans had given it a name that was never broadcast to the public: Eclipse 1. Its massive body rotated until its front panels faced the alien fleet. The alien commanders watched in disbelief. The human ship was enormous, but it wasn't just its size that frightened them. It was the silence. No transmissions. No lights except for a single red pulse running across its surface. It looked alive. The aliens fired another shot, this time directly at the human ship. The plasma beam hit dead center and then vanished. The Dreadnought's shield absorbed it completely, leaving not even a mark. Inside Eclipse 1, a young officer's voice echoed in the control room. Shield stable. No damage detected. The human commander gave a single order. Return signal. From the ship's sides, 12 ports opened, each glowing with a pale blue light. A moment later, beams of pure energy shot out, not to destroy but to disable. Each beam struck an alien ship precisely at its energy core, shutting it down instantly. One by one, the Council's vessels lost power, drifting helplessly through space. Within seconds, the battle was over. No explosions, no destruction, yet only silence. Every alien system had gone dark, and yet not a single ship had been destroyed. The Dreadnought had chosen mercy. Across the alien fleet, panic spread. Their commanders tried to restart systems, but the power simply wouldn't return. It was as if the Dreadnought had drained the energy right out of their technology. Then the human voice returned, clear and calm. We do not seek war, but if you threaten Earth again, we will defend ourselves. Those words echoed through the alien ships like thunder. Even the most experienced commanders felt fear. They had never seen power used with such precision, such control. After a long silence, one of the alien ships finally regained partial communication and sent a message back. What? Are you? The reply came immediately. We are human. The transmission ended. The Dreadnought slowly turned away and began to retreat toward Earth. Its engines glowed softly, leaving behind a faint trail of light before disappearing into the shadow of the moon once more. In the Council fleet, chaos erupted. Some wanted to retaliate. Others argued that such an attack would be suicide. Reports were sent to the main council chambers faster than ever before. Every leader demanded to see the recordings. Every scientist wanted to study the energy readings. But what scared them most was not the weapon itself. It was the control behind it. Humanity could have destroyed them. Instead, it had spared them. That kind of restraint didn't come from fear. It came from strength. Back on Earth, cheers broke out in hidden bases. People hugged, cried, and clapped as the news came in. No casualties, no damage, and the alien fleet retreating once again. For a few seconds, the whole command center fell silent, soaking in what they had just done. Humanity had stood up to the galaxy's oldest power, and won. But even in that moment of pride, the leaders remained cautious. They knew what would come next. The Council wouldn't stay quiet forever. The galaxy had just realized that the world it once ignored was capable of things they couldn't explain. Now, humanity had to be ready for the next step: diplomacy or war. In the quiet hours after the encounter, Eclipse 1 and the other Dreadnoughts went dark again, hiding behind coded stealth fields. They waited silently, guarding Earth from the shadows. People on the planet continued their daily lives, unaware that just beyond the stars, the balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever. The Council, shaken and humiliated, called an emergency assembly. The footage of Earth's Dreadnought was shown across their vast chamber: the sleek black ship, the disabling beams, the perfect control. Some members shouted for war. Others said no one should provoke such a power. An old alien elder finally spoke. If they learned this much while divided, imagine what they will do united. The hall went quiet. From that day, every report filed by the Council about Earth began with the same line: humanity, unknown potential, unpredictable and no longer underestimated, far away, orbiting silently behind the moon. The Dreadnoughts remained still. Their crews watched the stars, knowing that one day the Council might return again, not with scouts or warnings, but with an army. But this time, Earth wouldn't be caught unprepared. For centuries, humans had been the ones looking up at the stars with curiosity and fear. Now it was the galaxy looking back and feeling the same way. Humanity had spoken once through silence and once through power. The next time they would speak through choice, and the choice between peace and war. But for now the stars were quiet again. The alien fleets were gone. The Earth rotated peacefully under its blue sky, unaware that in the darkness above a new chapter of history had already begun. The galaxy had wanted proof of Earth's strength. The Dreadnoughts had delivered it, and now the whole universe knew. The age of silent humans was over. After the alien fleet's quiet retreat, space fell back into an uneasy calm. But the peace that followed wasn't peaceful at all. Across the galaxy, thousands of transmissions buzzed from planet to planet, from station to station. The story of what happened near Earth spread faster than light. For the first time in galactic history, an unregistered species, one that most civilizations had labeled as primitive, had stood against the Galactic Council and won. The Council tried to control the news, but it was impossible. The footage leaked, recordings of the human dreadnought glowing with cold blue energy, disabling entire fleets without a single casualty. Every race that saw the video asked the same question: how did they do it? In a trading hub orbiting a dying star, alien merchants whispered about the ghost planet. They said humans had awakened something ancient. In far-off colonies, children of different worlds played games pretending to be human captains fighting the Council. On some worlds, people celebrated. On others, they grew afraid, because if Earth could stop the Council, what else could they do? Inside the Council's grand chamber, a massive room filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, chaos had become routine. Some delegates shouted for revenge. Others begged for peace. The Supreme Elder, who had ruled longer than most species had existed, sat in silence. His old eyes stared at the hologram of Earth's dreadnought, studying every detail. "They used energy unlike any we have seen," said one scientist, pointing at the blue beam that had disabled the Council ships. "It's not plasma, not particle-based, not magnetic. It's adaptive, the Elder repeated softly. "Yes," the scientist said nervously. "It changes in response to the target's energy. It reads it, adjusts, and shuts it down instantly. It's technology that reacts and almost like it's alive. The room fell silent. No one had seen such power before, not even in ancient archives. It meant that Earth hadn't just built weapons, they had built intelligence into them. But how could a planet that only recently learned spaceflight have done that? Across the galaxy, researchers and spies began secretly studying Earth. Drones hidden behind asteroids scanned for energy signals. Alien scientists tried to trace the ship's engine patterns, but every attempt ended the same way: static interference, corrupted data, or total silence. It was as if Earth had vanished behind an invisible wall. Back on Earth, life continued as usual. People still went to work, children still played in parks, and the sky still looked calm. But behind the peaceful surface, humanity was working harder than ever. In underground facilities and hidden orbiting stations, thousands of engineers and scientists worked day and night, improving their technology, testing new systems, and analyzing the data from the encounter. They knew the truth. The galaxy was watching. The humans in charge of the Dreadnought program weren't celebrating victory. They were preparing for the storm they knew would come. The Council had lost face, and in the galaxy, pride was more dangerous than weapons. In one meeting deep underground, a senior officer stood before a group of scientists and commanders. "The Council will not stop," he said firmly. "They will come again, stronger, angrier, smarter. Next time it won't just be a test. It will be war." A quiet voice from the back of the room replied, "Then we make sure we're ready before they even move." And that's what they did. New dreadnoughts began construction, larger, faster, more intelligent than before. Artificial intelligence units were trained not to fight but to predict, to anticipate galactic tactics, analyze movement, and find peaceful outcomes before a battle even started. Humanity didn't want to rule. They wanted to survive and be respected. While the humans worked, the galaxy tried to make sense of them. Some believed Earth's victory was luck. Others thought it was a trap, that humans had been hiding their strength all along, pretending to be weak until the perfect moment. Rumors spread of secret Earth colonies hidden beyond Neptune, of experimental stations that bent gravity, of humans learning faster than any species before them. The galaxy's confidence began to shake. Even within the Council, divisions grew. Some members argued that humanity should be invited into the Council to prevent future conflict. Others said Earth must be isolated before it became unstoppable. The elder listened quietly as voices rose around him. Then he said something no one expected. "We have underestimated them for too long. If we strike, we may destroy them, or they may destroy us. But if we reach out, we may find an ally, one we desperately need." That one sentence silenced the room. In distant corners of the galaxy, not all civilizations respected the Council's authority. Rebellion groups, outcasts, and forgotten races had been quietly waiting for someone to challenge the old order. Now they saw their chance. Messages began to reach Earth from unknown sources, encrypted transmissions offering friendship, trade, and sometimes even alliances. They all said the same thing: "You are not alone." Earth didn't respond to most of them. Humanity had learned caution. They had seen how words could become traps, but they listened. Inside the main command station orbiting the moon, screens flickered with intercepted communications from across the galaxy. Each one talked about Earth, its mysterious power, its silence, its potential. Humanity had become the center of attention, even without speaking. But attention could be dangerous. One night, the early warning systems picked up something unusual. A small fleet moving toward the solar system. No Council markings, no identification codes. They weren't attacking. They were broadcasting a signal, an old human radio frequency from centuries ago. When decoded, the message was simple: "We come in peace. We need help." The humans hesitated. Could it be a trap? Or was it someone reaching out for real? After a long debate, the Council of Human Commanders made a decision. They would send one dreadnought to intercept, not to fight but to talk. The ship moved silently through space until it reached the edge of the solar system. There they found the visitors, smaller ships, old and damaged, carrying survivors from a planet destroyed by one of the Council's wars. They weren't soldiers. They were refugees. They told their story. How the Council had abandoned them after using their world for resources, how they had been hiding for decades, and how they heard about Earth's victory and followed the signal, hoping it was true. The humans listened carefully. For a moment, the silence of space felt heavy again, not with fear, but with compassion. After a long pause, the human commander said softly, "You are safe now." Those words spread through the refugee fleet, and for the first time in years, they felt hope. The humans guided them to a hidden outpost near the asteroid belt, where they were given food, water, and medical care. Humanity had fought to defend itself. Now, it was using its power to protect others, and that changed everything. When word reached the galaxy that Earth had given shelter to the Council's victims, reactions exploded. Some called the humans heroes, others called them dangerous. But everyone agreed on one thing. Earth was no longer a silent observer. Now it was a voice. A growing one. Back in the galactic chamber, the Elder received the report. He read it slowly, then closed his eyes. "They've done what we could not," he whispered. His assistants looked at him confused. "They've brought hope," the Elder said quietly. "And that makes them more powerful than we ever feared." The Council tried to send ambassadors to Earth, but their transmissions went unanswered. Humanity wasn't ready to trust yet. They were busy preparing, building, learning. On the dark side of the moon, Eclipse 1 and the other Dreadnoughts floated silently, their lights dim, their systems watching the stars. In their cores, new programs were awakening, not for destruction but for communication. The human scientists believed that true power wasn't in fighting. It was in understanding. They wanted to find a way to speak to every species, to make peace through knowledge, not fear. But deep in the galaxy, others saw this differently. To them, Earth's mercy was weakness. They began planning in shadows, building weapons the Council had long forbidden. The stage for the next great conflict was quietly being set, not by Earth, but by those who feared it. And yet, amid all that fear, there were those who believed that humanity might be the key to something greater, a future where no single council ruled, but where every world had a voice. For now, Earth watched. The Dreadnoughts stood guard, the planet below carried on as if nothing had changed, and the stars shone quietly. But those who truly understood knew the truth. The silence before had been the galaxy ignoring Earth. This silence was different. This time the galaxy was listening. The galaxy had grown quiet again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This time the quiet was filled with tension, like the deep breath before something big happens. Everywhere, beings from countless worlds were watching Earth. They had seen the Dreadnoughts rise from the shadows. They had seen the Council fail, and now everyone was waiting to see what humanity would do next. Would they attack? Would they take revenge? Or would they lead? No one knew, not even the humans themselves. On Earth, life had settled into a strange rhythm. Most people didn't even know the truth about what had happened in space. Governments had decided to keep it quiet for now. Only a small circle of leaders, scientists, and ship commanders knew the full story. They called it the Silence Protocol. But behind that silence, the world had changed completely. Earth was no longer afraid of what lay beyond the stars. The fear that once held humanity back had been replaced by something stronger: purpose. The engineers worked day and night in hidden stations. The Dreadnought crews trained for every possible scenario. Humanity was not preparing for war. They were preparing for survival. In a dark control room beneath the Earth's surface, a large screen displayed incoming transmissions from deep space. The Council had sent another message, this time not in anger, but in uncertainty. The voice of the Galactic Elder echoed through the speakers, calm yet distant. "Humans of Earth, the galaxy watches you. We wish to understand your intentions." It wasn't a demand this time. It was a question. The Human Council listened carefully. The room was silent for a long time. Everyone knew this was the moment that would shape the future, not just for Earth but for the galaxy itself. After a while, one of the senior leaders spoke. "We don't want to rule anyone. We don't want revenge, but we won't live under anyone's shadow again." They sent that message back. It was short, but it carried the weight of centuries of silence, struggle, and hope. The Council didn't respond right away. But far beyond Earth's orbit, their fleets began to move again. Not toward Earth, but around it, circling from a distance, watching. The humans knew what that meant. The Council was still deciding whether to trust or to strike. In the following weeks, small signals began appearing across space, strange coded messages coming from unknown regions. Some were warnings. Some were requests for help. Others were something else. The refugee species Earth had sheltered had begun spreading stories of human kindness. They told others how the humans had saved them without asking for anything in return, and those stories reached places even the Council couldn't control. Soon, Earth began receiving secret communications from rebel colonies, forgotten outposts, and free worlds tired of the Council's rule. They all said the same thing. If you ever stand against them, we will stand with you. The humans didn't answer, but they saved every message. Meanwhile, work continued on the Dreadnoughts. The first generation, Eclipse 1 and its sisters, had been built for defense. But now, the next generation was being designed for something greater, not just war but exploration, peacekeeping, and communication. These new ships were sleeker, faster, and equipped with energy that could either shield a planet or destroy a fleet. But the humans had no desire to use that second option. They had already seen enough destruction from others. As the months passed, the galaxy's mood began to shift. The Council's power weakened, their authority questioned. Many member worlds began holding private talks, wondering if the Council's rule was coming to an end. For the first time, the universe didn't revolve around the old empires. It revolved around Earth. The Council could feel it. And so they made a decision. They would meet humanity face to face. Without warning, a fleet of Council ships appeared near Jupiter. Not in attack formation, but peacefully, their weapons powered down. They sent a signal to Earth requesting dialogue. The humans debated for hours. Some feared it was a trap. Others said it was a chance for peace. Finally, the decision was made. Eclipse 1 would meet the Council fleet halfway, in open space far from any planet. The day of the meeting, the world held its breath. Every satellite, every radar system, every observatory on Earth was focused on that point in space. As the two fleets approached each other, the silence was absolute. The Council's ships, massive and shining with silver light, faced the dark, quiet form of Eclipse 1. Both sides held their positions. Finally, the Council's flagship opened a channel. The Elder appeared on the main screen inside Eclipse 1's control room. His face was calm, but his eyes showed age and caution. "Humanity," he said slowly, "we have judged you wrongly. Your strength, it is not only in your weapons," the human commander nodded. "Our strength is in what we protect, not what we destroy." The Elder seemed to think about those words. Then he said, "The galaxy fears you because it does not understand you. Tell me, what do you want?" The humans had expected many questions, but not this one. The room fell silent. Then the commander spoke softly. "We want peace. But peace with respect. No more control, no more chains. Just freedom, and for all." The Elder closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, his expression had changed. "Freedom is a dangerous word," he said quietly, "but maybe it's what the galaxy needs." The transmission ended. The fleet stayed in position for a while longer. Then, slowly, the Council ships began to turn away, not retreating this time, but leaving peacefully. The humans didn't chase, didn't threaten. They simply watched them go. For the first time in galactic history, a meeting between the most powerful government and a once primitive planet ended without violence, only understanding. When the news spread, the galaxy reacted like never before. Across distant systems, people celebrated. In others, the Council's authority collapsed completely. Planets that had been under its rule for centuries began forming their own alliances. Free worlds united not by fear, but by choice. They called it the New Dawn Pact, and at its center, Earth stood quietly, not as a ruler but as a symbol. Over the next few years, humans began venturing deeper into the stars, this time openly. Their ships traveled to colonies that had once shunned them, helping rebuild worlds damaged by wars. The Dreadnoughts, once feared as instruments of destruction, became guardians, their presence bringing safety instead of fear. One of the refugee species that Earth had saved built a monument on their new world, a statue of a human hand reaching toward the stars. On its base, they carved words that would echo across generations, not the strongest, not the oldest, but the kindest. Back on Earth, ordinary people finally learned the truth. The government released the files, videos, and messages from the encounters. At first there was shock, then pride, then a sense of calm strength. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars. They just never expected the stars to notice them this way. And now they weren't just part of the galaxy. They were shaping it. Still, the galaxy was far from peaceful. Hidden forces continued to whisper, and some powers refused to accept Earth's rise. But now humanity had allies, and more importantly, unity. The Dreadnoughts continued to guard silently, their captains watching the endless expanse of stars. On quiet nights when the engines hummed softly, crew members would look out of the viewing decks and see the light of countless worlds sparkling like fireflies. They didn't feel small anymore. They felt connected. The commander of Eclipse 1 often said to his crew, "We were once the quiet planet at the edge of the galaxy." They thought silence meant weakness. But sometimes silence means we're listening, learning, waiting for the right moment to speak. Those words became a saying across many worlds, and so, years passed. The galaxy changed. The council slowly dissolved, replaced by a new alliance built on fairness and mutual respect. Earth became one of its founding members, not because of its power, but because of its choices. The humans had proved something that no weapon ever could. That mercy could be stronger than fear, and peace could be built even after centuries of silence, and so, the Dreadnoughts remained, no longer hidden, no longer feared. They became the guardians of that peace, drifting through the stars like silent protectors, carrying humanity's promise to the universe. One promise, written in every beam of light that left their engines. We are human. We are not here to conquer. We are here to stand. The galaxy, once filled with pride and division, now had a new heartbeat, and it began on the small blue planet that everyone once ignored. Earth, the quiet world that taught the stars what strength truly meant.